We now want to move to the news purge. It's massive, as always. On the previous B-side episode on Food World Order, we call the list of ugly headlines. Cyberspacewar.com, we call it DEFCON, and here on MediaMonarchy.com, it's the 7-1 news purge for July 1st, Independence Day, as we noted T''S, but that was also the name of our opening track from the previous B-side episode from Elliott Smith, again, as we are coming up on the nation's holiday that, as we just referenced, a bunch of Americans have no idea what it's all about. So we first hit 9/11 updates, where coming out of New Zealand, tvnz.co.nz, destruction of the Twin Towers voted most memorable news event. And from Cincinnati.com, we note that a Cincinnati firm is now heading up 9/11 compensations. Leon Panetta of the Clinton era, of course, returns and is now the head of the Criminals in Action, the Cocaine Importation Agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, where he notes in the Telegraph that the U.S. hasn't had any good intel on Osama in years. WTC Steel salvaged after 9/11 to be part of Ludlow Memorial in Massachusetts. More on that from masslive.com, and a massive report with lots of documentation and videos. It's on thepeoplesvoice.org. Independent investigation into Pentagon attack yields alarming information. This is coming from the folks who have pretty much just been focusing on this, the Citizens Investigation Team. I forget their exact name, that's just off the top of my head. But we'll always note here that we don't worship at the Church of Controlled Demolition. There are a lot of other things surrounding the official conspiracy theory of 9/11, as we've gone over recent updates concerning Building 7 and Silverstein, as well as the insider trading, and Buzzy Krongard and the CIA and Deutsche Bank, and Alex Brown, and again, the banksters, the drugs, the resource wars. We find the same red thread. So it's on to Econocrash. And we're going to have our first of, I believe, 2 clips from Webster Tarpley, tarpley.net, a frequent contributor on Russia Today, again, which is pretty much the go-to news source on YouTube. Basically, they have a quick or long video up on pretty much every news story, and as I like to add in lots of multimedia information for you here, I find it always comes back to them covering pretty much every story going on, such as the financial reform bill is, of course, a triumph of the Wall Street derivatives lobby.
So what is so special about this, reform bill that you have lawmakers and President Obama saying that we need this in order to prevent a future crisis, that this is going to prevent any other economic crisis from happening?
Unfortunately, it won't. I would say this is a complete triumph of the Wall Street derivatives lobby. It's a sellout so bad it's grotesque. Even cynics are astounded by the impudence of the U.S. Congress. Just a couple of things. They wouldn't say that a stockbroker has to pursue the best interests of their own client. They wouldn't do anything to stop rip-offs on the financing of used cars. There's nothing to limit interest rates on credit cards or payday loans. There's nothing on foreclosures. There's no cap on leverage. You can speculate all you want. There's nothing to diminish the power of the Federal Reserve. They've even gained in power.
Well, it's very interesting because experts have said that, Barack Obama wanted this thing in the bag. So when he gets to the G8 and the G20 summits in Canada, he could sort of wave this in their face and say, country did, it's time you guys reform your institutions.
Look, it may not pass. That's always the hope, that there'll be a rebellion of the rank and file and the backbenchers. Look, we're in the Depression. Most people are thinking it will. Well, who knows? Bush had some surprises, Bush the elder. It's a depression caused by banks and hedge funds speculating with derivatives. That was the banking panic of September '08. This does nothing. There are no bright line prohibitions. There are no penalties. Now, there was one attempt. Senator Blanche Lincoln, paragraph 716, she said, we want to prevent banks from dealing credit default swaps, at least. There's nothing about collateralized debt obligations, what brought down Lehman, Citibank, and Merrill, but at least credit default swaps, what brought down AIG. In the night, last night, the crime was done Congressman Peterson of Minnesota came forward and said, look, we've got a compromise in a back room, not on TV, who said, look, we're going to have foreign exchange swaps and credit derivatives and interest rate swaps all allowed for banks. So it means that Blanche Lincoln's measure is gutted. There was one other serious thing, the Volcker rule. And that said, commercial banks can't do speculation, proprietary trading for their own account. You remember Scott Brown, the candidate from Massachusetts who drove a pickup truck to dupe the voters? He just took his pickup truck and drove it right through the federal, the Volcker rule on this bill. So now they can do 3% of their capital in a hedge fund and speculate with that, which means they can lose 200 or 300% of their own capital and be completely bankrupt. And if that's not enough, there's also this quibble about proprietary trading and market making. Where's the line? There's going to be a study group to decide that, so that will take several years. And in the meantime, I think a lot of these banks will go bankrupt.
So you're saying Wall Street emerged as a winner here, which wasn't supposed to. But what about the Federal Reserve? I understand that the Federal Reserve under this bill is actually going to get more power, so we can consider them a winner too.
I mean, at the beginning, there was a tremendous resentment for the failure of Bernanke. At Helicopter, Ben struck out completely. Now he has more power. But in terms of this, what do you think Goldman Sachs is paying Obama for? How come Wall Street gave more money to Obama? He is in the pocket of Wall Street. And of course, Senator Dodd is headed for Wall Street. Barney Frank, bailout Barney, they're all in the same boat. And the Republicans act as if a hedge fund is just a mom and pop Main Street business that deserves to be able to hedge. I mean, it's a complete mythology going on.
And as if all that wasn't enough, the econo crash continues. Dollar should be replaced as international standard, UN report says. This from CNN. The dollar is an unreliable international currency and should be replaced by a more stable system. The United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs said in a report released Tuesday. One world currency. Krugman gets into why we could be entering a third depression. And again, we noted those ugly lists from the economiccollapseblog.com. Here's 7 potential economic effects of a war with Iran, like the price of oil would skyrocket, fear would explode in world financial markets, world trade would instantly seize up, military spending would escalate, Russia would greatly benefit, massive inflation would happen, and the price of gold would go through the roof. Just like that trader noted in the documentary The Corporation, that as the World Trade Center buildings were exploding into aerosolized dust, he thought, wow, gold must be exploding. And our last econo crash note, Obamaville shanty towns spread across America. Call them Hoovervilles, Bushvilles, Obamavilles. The growing, rising masses of folks unemployed, homeless, foreclosed on, starting to set up tent cities. And again, it's all playing out as if it had all been put down in some bad sci-fi movie in the 70s.